Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is Monday, October 3rd, 2022, and you're listening to episode 148 of the Can I Say Something podcast. I'm your host, Anna Recluse, with a juicy caboose, Damien. Joining me today is...
Derek McDuff.
On today's show, we'll be discussing, with possible spoilers for everything, what we've been watching, including Don't Worry Darling, Speak No Evil, and Andrew Dominik's provocative new NC-17 rated film, Blonde. Right into the show, bicycle@gmail.com, bicycle on Twitter, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, and Spotify. Rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend, family member, or stranger. What is up, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling refreshed after I just got back from a couple days ago. Got back from a wedding, and I was telling you before the show, in your neck of the woods, somewhat. I was over in Vermont, looking at the changing leaves, and as I was texting you, it gets dark really fucking early over there, and I was looked outside. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, where's the sun? It's only 5:30. What's going on?
At 5:30, sun goes away, the clouds drive in, darkness envelops you. Yep. So you want to bust out a parka, you want to bust out a Burlington coat factory jacket, you want to start smoking cigarettes and hating the Yankees. Yep.
Yeah, all of those things happened, So, yeah, I went. I was shopping on. I was in Burlington, and I was on that Church Street market, and it started raining, and I was like, oh, okay. Luckily, it didn't rain on the wedding day somehow. That I was there for, but every other day I think that I was there, it rained, so it worked out.
Yeah. You wanted to get a pumpkin spice latte. You wanted to get some coffee in your hand, right?
Coffee, one coffee, please.
Yep. Do they have Dunkies out there? Is Dunkies just that's a northeastern thing, right?
Dunkies? Was that like Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Did you partake in the local cuisine?
I mean, I had some food on Church Street.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything though. I went to a cider mill, and then I went to something that is definitely local there. I went on the factory tour of the what's the ice cream? I'm spacing. Baskin Robbins or
Ben and Jerry's?
Ben and Jerry's. I was like, that's not right. Baskin Robbins. Yeah, Ben and Jerry's. I took the factory tour. That was pretty fun. I guess that's a local thing. I mean, I know they're everywhere, but still.
Yeah, hometown favorites. Yep. Mm-hmm. Love the Ben and Jerry's. Love the names they give all their flavors over there. Yep. Love all that stuff.
Yes, good stuff.
Yep. All right, so that's fun. Yep. The sun goes down very early. I'll just put a prompt in here. I'll put a plug for my interview I just did. Really great interview. B.R. Yeager, who's the author of a book called Negative Space. Speaking of Northeast, it takes place in the Northeast, and he lives around here, so I thought I would chat him up, send him an email, and say, you want to come on, do a podcast and talk about your book. Came out in 2020, it's a couple of years ago. Really, really smart guy. I really like the book a lot. It's about just living around here. It's like Cormac McCarthy. It's like Child of God. It's very... it's about the tone and the style and the feel of it, the vibes of it, more than it's not really a plot-driven book. It's more about like just kids on doing drugs and drinking a lot and just sort of the dead mill towns of Western Mass and Central Mass, and sort of that vibe of just trying to survive and like just a rundown fucking town. Everybody's depressed and killing themselves and doing drugs, and it was a nasty little book, but very well written. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend Negative Space by Mr. B.R. Yeager. Yep. So
yeah, I can't wait till they come out with a book or a movie or anything set here in Southern California. That'll be nice when that finally happens.
Never see that stuff. No, I want to see a movie about making movies. That would be new and unique.
Can you even imagine? Why has nobody done that, I wonder?
Isn't there like 3 of them coming out in the Word seasons next month or so? Yeah. Right? Empire of Light is that, right? Empire of Light is that.
Hollywood Babylon, I think is what it's called.
And wasn't there a third one?
Are we counting Blonde?
Blonde can be that, yeah. What's the one by who did the Mexican director? He did the black and white movie a few years ago. Cuarón, yes, thank you. I think he has one out this year, doesn't he?
Okay, I don't know. I haven't heard.
Yeah,
There's so much this award season. I've
yeah,
not really been following as much as I should.
yeah. So Babylon, David Chazelle, that's his movie. I'm
Hmm.
just looking down the list here real quick. Fablemans obviously is a
Yeah,
autobiographical, so there's probably going to be some stuff about cinema in there. The love of cinema in there is going to be there.
yeah,
Let's
yeah. There's that one still
see.
of like little boy Steven Spielberg watching a movie with his dad, Paul Dano.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait to check out that stuff. But let's get to
Yeah,
some
yeah.
stuff we've been watching recently. A couple of things that are extremely anxiety inducing that I've checked out last couple of days. One of the most viscerally anxiety ridden movies I've seen since Uncut Gems is a movie called
Mm,
Caliber or Calibre. It's spelled Calibre. So it's spelled in that the English way of saying caliber.
mm,
It's about two guys, two hunters who go out to the Scottish countryside, go to a small little bed and breakfast, and go out hunting one night, and they have an accident, big time accident. Very bad things happen. They try to cover that up, and they sort of, say, let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go back to the village. Like, we can't act suspiciously. So let's party a little bit. Let's drink, go to their festival, and everyone's like, all right, you came here. It's just festival time. So like, all right, I guess we're gonna stay an extra night. That's not great. So that, it increases their chances of being caught. But they stay there the extra night. They're like, we're gonna get out of here very early in the morning. They wake up around noon. I'll just say this. I won't say too much about it, but there's a really, really well-paced, well-written scene where they wake up the next day. It's around noon, and like a couple dozen of the villagers are surrounding their car. They pop their tires. They come out. The hunters come out. They confront the villagers. It's like, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, we know what you did. And they push one of them against the car, pull out a knife, put it to one of the guy's throat. Is like, we know what you did. Just admit it. We know what you fucking did. We know what you did. Just admit it. And the guy was like, yeah, we did it. And he's like, yeah, I know you fucked my daughter. We know you gave her drugs. And they're like, yes, we did that. Yep, exactly. Yep. I would say what they did, but it wasn't that. So yeah,
mm.
just really, really well written, extremely tense scenes of two guys just trying to get away with something. So really highly recommend Caliber. It's one of those hidden gems on Netflix. I believe it has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not just me saying it. So I highly recommend
Mm.
watching Caliber if you can. Great movie. And then
Nice.
continuing with that anxiety-ridden stuff, and a movie I was highly looking forward to because I believe it debuted at Sundance this year. So I've had it on my watch list for the last 8 months, waiting for this to come out. It's a movie called Speak No Evil. It's a movie directed by Christian Taftrup. I think he's a Danish director.
Mm.
The synopsis is: a Danish family visits a Dutch family where they met on holiday. What was supposed to be an idyllic weekend slowly starts unraveling as the Danes try to stay polite in the face of unpleasantness. So it's very much like one of those, you're out to dinner or you're at a function, and you're meeting some new people for the first time, and you just want to, keep this sort of air of politeness that we sort of have in society, where you're just like, okay, well, whatever happens, we're just gonna. The worst thing we can do is offend somebody. So it's like, um, they have kids, and the other family has kids as well, and the other family sort of starts telling their kids what to do, and it's this thing where it's just like they want to say something, but they don't really know what to say, and eventually they're like, stop fucking telling my kids what to do. And that's just like one of the first red flags that immediately flares up at
Mm.
this sort of hangout. At one point, the host family says to them, we're gonna head out for dinner. You can keep your kids here. We're gonna have a babysitter come along. And like, what? You never said anything about that. And they're like, no, it's fine. It's like, it's a babysitter you never met. So if you had kids, you wouldn't be very uncomfortable with that situation. So they're like, okay, that's weird. I just wish we would have said something. And sort of they just have a very, very weird night out, and they drink a lot. And one of the host family, the host couple, gets very belligerently drunk and starts making out. So it's just these scenarios in which are very like, push the envelope of, this is not okay in society. So you don't
Mm.
really want to say anything. It's sort of goes along that line, and then it gets goes off a cliff near the end. I won't say too much again about this, because I want people to see this for themselves. But it's a very intense, very anxiety ridden, very very good movie called Speak No Evil. I believe that is out on Shudder as well. So definitely check that out. And then getting to the biggest release of the year, one of the biggest releases of the year, my number one most anticipated movie of this year, right?
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah,
so
I
much
remember
talk
that.
about this movie. Yeah, this is Don't Worry, Darling. This is a movie that a lot of hubbub about, I guess we could call it, right? Just so much spit and vile about this movie
Yeah.
over the course of the past few weeks. So yeah, are you anticipating this? Do you want to seek this out and watch this movie?
No,
No?
I
Okay.
mean, I don't really care about it. Like
All
the
right.
trailers, I was like, this looks like mildly interesting, and then all the stuff came out, and I was like, well, okay, whatever. Like, I'll maybe catch it when it goes on streaming.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ju-
So
So
feel free to spoil it because I really
sure.
don't care.
That's as an issue, yeah. So full spoilers. Skip ahead for the next 5 minutes or so if you don't want to hear spoilers for Olivia Wilde's "Don't Worry, Darling." This is fine. This is a fine one of those. Um, Here's the thing. I wrote about a blog post about this on my Medium blog. I think movies that have a twist or a reveal have to have some breadcrumbs leading along the way, some clues along the way that you can either pick out and sort of guess the ending before the ending happens, or you can at least go back and pick out those things later on and say, okay, this movie played fair. It had some clues around it where you could point to things and say, I missed that. That was a review. That was a hint towards what the review is going to be, right? This movie
Right.
doesn't do that. There is nothing in here where you can go back and point to, oh, that's a clue, that's a reveal, that's a small little signifier telling you what the reveal is going to be. There's nothing in here. So the reveal is, well, the setup. Let me reverse that. The setup is, Florence Pugh and Harry Styles are living this idyllic life in a 1950s like village or suburb or something. That's the first tip off that something's weird, because there's no other villages around, there's no other towns around. It's the middle of the desert, and at first you're like, okay, is this like are Harry Styles and the other men working for like a military facility where they're testing nuclear weapons like they did in the 50s? And they're doing that out in the desert, maybe underground or something. So that because there's earthquakes happening, you're like, okay, maybe there's a bomb going off. That's could be that, but slowly is revealed to you that that is not what it is. And so just weirder and weirder stuff happens, and there's really nothing. Again, there's nothing interesting happening here in terms of you're telling a story about a woman going crazy, so there's no sort of interesting twist on that or interesting view on that very well trodden trope. And then so I'll just talk about the reveal and why it doesn't work for me. It's so Harry Styles trapped Florence Pugh's character in the real world. The real world is now, it's 2020, 22, whatever. Florence Pugh was a successful surgeon and she worked a very long shift. She's working for both of them. Harry Styles is this typical stay-at-home guy, not working, not clean-shaven, whatever, very dirtbaggy, typical dirtbag guy, right? He's watching a lot of incel videos, watching a lot of Jordan Peterson type videos, and the guy is played by Chris Pine in real life. You only hear his voice. You don't really see him. So he's telling him about the Victory Project and come here, pay a certain amount of money or whatever, or sign an NDA if you don't have money, so you can sign an NDA and we'll just take your body and we'll use that as collateral or whatever. So the entire world is in VR basically. It's a metaverse type thing. So the entire world is just in Florence Pugh's head and everyone else's head. It's a whole VR thing. So that's a reveal. He just took Harry Styles' character Jack, took Florence Pugh's character Alice hostage, tied her down, put this VR headset on her, and they're living that world. But there was nothing in the movie itself leading up to that clued you into that fact whatsoever. So the reveals very much didn't work for me on that level.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like a tired thing too. It's just like when you see something in the past, it's like, oh, guess what? Like, that was one of the early Shyamalan twists that didn't work for people is The Village. People were just
Yep.
it's like, oh, guess what? It's actually today. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah, it's not great. It's really not great. And did you ever hear about the twist in Serenity, the movie from like 2018, 2019? The
No.
Matthew McConaughey thing. Okay, so I mean, I guess they just ruined that twist for people as well. It is basically that. It was like a video game. Everybody in that movie was in some kid's video game. So this is very much that. Like I said on Twitter, the Don't Worry Darling is the 2022 version of Serenity. So yeah, just not a great twist. And some very weird stuff just happens. Like Gemma Chan is in here playing Chris Pine's wife, and she kills him near the end, which is like, I don't know why that had to happen. Everything's falling out around them, and just everything was dying. So I guess she was like, "Fuck you, you
So
fucked
is
up." This,
Gemma Chan also in this virtual world? Like she's another
yeah.
person who's trapped in there? Okay.
So that's one interesting point, I guess. One interesting element of this film is that Gemma Chan and I believe also Olivia Wilde are there by choice, as opposed to Florence Pugh being forced to be there. So that explains like their behavior in terms of them sort of pushing away or dismissing Florence Pugh's initial worries about what's going on in the world. So I guess that was one interesting flavor of this movie. But yeah, like I said, overall, just the twist didn't work for me. The very on the nose scenes, set pieces where I think it's in the trailer, Florence Pugh is cleaning a window and the wall is pushing in on her. So the walls are literally closing in on her. Aha, I see what you did there, Olivia
I've seen
Wilde.
that on TikTok so many times. That's the whole ad because TikTok ads gotta be quick. It's just like he's just like washing the window and it's just don't worry, darling, out September 8th or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, not great overall. Would not recommend. Yep. And then so another big one from TIFF and Venice that just released on Netflix very recently, the film Blonde, directed by Andrew Dominic, obviously starring Ana de Armas as Norma Jean or Marilyn Monroe. We've got Julianne Nicholson playing her mother Gladys. We've got there were some people in here. They do that thing again where they're just like, here's all the people as in order of appearance. That's not how you should what do you call it? Rank them. Just want everybody that I know in here. So tell me real quick, why don't you start out with this one? What'd you think of Blonde?
So I was actually watching this and we were talking about before, and we actually got our wires crossed, and I thought we were recording at 9:30 my time, and we were recording at 9:30 your time. So I watched the first 30 minutes of this.
Okay.
And so then I never stopped and record because I got my time messed up. So far, it is weird as shit, and not in a particularly good way. It's very. I'm like, is this the best way to deal with mental health issues? This movie, and why are the pictures talking like it's a fucking Harry Potter movie? I mean, Ana de Armas is really good, and I think she's going for the Oscar this year, and that was my main reason for wanting to watch it, is seeing her performance. But yeah, it's very peculiar. I've not been. I'll finish it probably after we finish recording here. I mean, I know the ending because I know what happened to Marilyn Monroe in real life. Yeah, it's not great so far.
No, I watched it, and I'm just gonna echo what everyone is saying. It's torture porn, it's trauma porn, it's abuse porn, it's putting her through the ringer for really no reason. It's just like, here's the thing that happened, and it's not commenting on it in any interesting way. Like you said, Ana de Armas is fantastic in this. Probably the best I've ever seen her. Definitely going to be up for awards, if not win some. But it's a very pretty looking movie. It's shot very interestingly. I think Andrew Dominic, one of the things you always think about with his movies, especially the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, is it uses a lot of natural light. So you have that going on with a very interesting way of shooting it. But yeah, like I said, it's just not commenting on her abuse in any interesting way. I feel like, with us having this hobby of like watching movies, you have to sort of reckon with the knowledge that it comes with a lot of abuse. It comes with a lot of baggage, where this industry still abuses a lot of people, mostly women, but men too. And I feel like this movie could have done something interesting where it's like you're watching this thing and you are supposed to be entertained by it, and it's just you could have said like you could have implicated the audience in the abuse in an interesting way, but you don't. You just sort of tell her story, not really from her point of view either. It's a very we call it a not you can't trust the narrator. What is that called?
Oh, unreliable narrator.
Thank you. Yeah, unreliable narrator. You could have done something like that, and it's a little bit of that, but you didn't go all the way with it. I think you could have implicated a lot of the men more and more of the system, and he sort of contextualizes the abuse in terms of like she wants to be part of the industry as opposed to the men sort of instead of being like, hey, we're going to hire you based on how well you can act. And I think there are many instances in here where they're showing how smart she is and how well read she is and how much work she puts into the performances and how well she does at the auditions. I think there's a lot there where they're sort of propping her up and saying, look at her, look, she was more than just a sex symbol. She was more than just that scene that everyone knows about her out in the street lifting her skirt. But you could also then say the producers were pieces of shit for ignoring that and not nurturing that and just seeing her as an object to be used. I think they could have dug into that more, which they don't. Again, it's just a 3-hour abuse onto her and just showing her trauma and never really showing many more sides of that. So yeah, not great, like you said. Yep. So let's move on. Let's see. Do Revenge is a film I also saw this week. Another Netflix exclusive film that they put out this week. This movie is directed by Jennifer Caitlin Robertson. It stars a bunch of people, a bunch of young actors and actresses. Maya Hawke, Camila Mendes, Austin Abrams. And right before we hopped on, I was looking at the list and I was like, Tyler Ryder, why do I know that name? Oh, she was in one of my favorite movies from 2020, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And I clicked on it and I rewatched the scene she was in. I was like, holy shit, she's like unrecognizable from that previous role. But she's great in this as well as is Maya Hawke and everybody in this. This is Sophie Turner's great in this from Game of Thrones. She does this really incredible memed moment that's going around TikTok right now of her screaming at Camila Mendes. She's like, I don't do cocaine. I don't even know what it looks like. Because you got Camila Mendes drops some cocaine onto her and makes it look like she was doing it. And she gets kicked out. And as she's leaving, she just fucking loses it on her, which is great. Really, really interesting. Like, we're at this point where it's just like meta. Everything is just eating its own tail in terms of being self-referential. And I think this does self-referential stuff. It's obviously, it knows what it's parodying or knows what it's borrowing from with like Mean Girls and Heathers and stuff like that. And I think it leans into that. It's like, we know what you're thinking when you're watching these scenes, so we're just going to play that song from that movie, or we're just going to say that line from the movie. So without being totally, on the nose with it or totally self-aware with it, I think it does sort of stand on its own as a really great, smart 2022 version of those things. So I'd highly recommend watching Do Revenge.
Okay, I need to check that one out. There's been so many revenge movies, and it's been something I've been thinking about a lot, especially since I've recently rewatched the that episode of War where they're talking about on Netflix where they're talking about the revenge movies, and it's something that we are seeing. Talked about vengeance not too long ago. One of my movies is one that I watched this week is one of the kind of classic revenge films, and that question of what do we get out of this revenge? Like, what does this mean? Is something that I've been finding really interesting in films and the way that different movies handle it in different ways.
Yeah, it does that stuff really, really interestingly. Yeah. Then we jump to something you've been watching. Check out The Woman King. I actually haven't seen this yet, so tell me what you thought of that.
So this movie I went in with really high expectations and it was fine. It was, I was expecting this awesome, just kind of like epic story, this Lawrence of Arabia type sweeping epic, but with these African warriors, and it really isn't that. It's not advertised as a rape revenge story, which is a big part of it. There's a lot of that going on, which is kind of not what you would expect in this movie, and it's there's not a lot of consent that's going on in the movie that's got some unfortunate implications, I think. Viola Davis is great. All the
Yeah.
actors and actresses are very, very good. But I think it is a little bit muddy. Um, not exactly what I was expecting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. There is the weirdest paternity test of all time that happens to this movie. It is it is like, why was that what you landed on? Like, why was that the way to resolve this plot point? You couldn't have thought of something else. Okay, moving on. Um but yeah, it's, it Davis is always a tour de force, and it's worth seeing it for her. But it is definitely not what the trailers make it out to be. It is not this big, bold epic. There are some, pretty great action scenes in it, but it's really a story, just kind of and we were talking about revenge movies, and rape revenge movies are definitely a specific subgenre of that I think people are becoming, you know, people have, like it's you said, it's the trauma porn thing, and it's the kind of revenge porn thing. And it's like, what is this accomplishing? And
Yeah.
it's a weird setting for that, for sure. It's an unexpected, or I should say, maybe an unexpected setting. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say I probably recommend it. But yeah, just be aware of what you're going into, because it's not as advertised.
So let me ask you about something that I've heard about it, and something that some people have said that it sort of handles weirdly or weakly.
Hmm.
This obviously takes place a few hundred years ago, so it's still in the African slave trade era, and they sort of touch on that stuff in terms of like what their responsibility, or what their what do you call it? Not obligation, but their what do you call it? Their how much they took part in it. How much responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Does it really reckon with that stuff, and how does it do that?
It kind of hand waves it, and I thought that was going to be something that was going to be a much bigger thing in the film, but they kind of are like, well, we're not going to do this. This kingdom's not going to do this anymore. We're going to sell palm oil,
Yeah.
which is, it's not historically accurate for what that kingdom was actually doing, because that kingdom was slavers. And I'm not saying that everything needs to be historically accurate.
Right.
But yeah, they don't really they deals a lot more with issues of womanhood than it does with issues of slavery and race and all the things that I thought it was going to deal with. It does a little bit, but they're just kind of like, oh yeah, the king says we're not going to do that anymore. And so it touches on it, but not in a way that feels really that interesting or impactful. It's much more concerned with the issues of being a woman, which is,
Yeah.
fine, but not what you would expect in this movie that's this, set in this place in this time. Um, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's it's an interesting film. I might have to rewatch it to, give it another go. But yeah.
You would recommend it?
I would recommend it. I
Yeah.
would recommend it. I would say, if you are someone who is maybe a little bit uncomfortable with that, the trope of the rape revenge story, uh, maybe not, because that is the driving crux of this movie, and the way that it portrays the rapists, I think, is not. It's maybe a little. I don't know. It's a
Too
little.
sympathetic?
I'm not even that. It's just that I think that the way they play into some tropes, I'll just say, like, that I think are kind of unfortunate. Some tropes about, what you think a rapist would look like in Ronald Reagan's America, and
Ah.
it makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, me saying this, being like a white guy, I don't want to like condemn the movie too much for that, but it was
Right.
something that I kind of was like, this is a little, this is an interesting choice that I don't know about.
I'll probably still check it out. And you
Yeah.
also watched The Godfather this week. Is that for a podcast?
No, so I've never seen The Godfather
Oh
before.
wow.
Yeah, so I was like, I need to scratch this off of my list actually because I'm a movie guy, I'm a big movie buff. So I should probably get around to seeing this one. This has
Yeah.
been my biggest omission. So I was flying back on the plane and they had The Godfather on the plane. So I was like, well, I guess I'll plug my headphones in and watch this. And some people might be like, well, that's not the way to watch The Godfather, but um. I've never really gotten around to it because I thought it was going to be kind of boring, and slow, and uh, I understand this movie is a classic and it's beloved, and there are incredible performances, and Michael Corleone's transformation in the story is one of the all-time great character arcs. But man, this movie moves like molasses. Like this is just it's just like, oh my gosh. Like, okay, well now we're going over here and we need to, oh, okay, like this all the stuff with the horse head. I'm like, I get that's iconic and it's interesting, but it does very little to move the plot forward. There's all these just kind of bits and pieces. Like Michael's just in Italy for like 30 minutes and like, where's this going? Okay,
Yeah.
his wife gets blown up and he's gonna leave. I was just kept like checking like how much more of this movie do I have?
Yeah.
I'm probably a lot more interested in the second one
Yeah.
I'm interested in like Bobby De Niro being the young Vito Corleone in like the 20s or whatever. That seems a little interesting to me. But I mean, I liked it. It's obviously really good. Like the characters are very interesting, and the way you see him just kind of lose all of his morals is very very interesting, incredibly well written. But man, it it was so just like, and we keep going, and now this theme song's coming back, and I get it. Like older films sometimes are slower,
Yeah.
but you know what? Kane came out 30 years before this one, and Citizen Kane moves at a clip. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you can use that whole excuse. I'm sure a lot of people are really mad at me right now. I like I said, I didn't hate the film,
Yeah.
but it didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I have it at 3.5 on Letterbox. So yeah, I definitely the pacing does kind of kill it. Obviously, I kind of performances right. Sort of when you're watching this stuff, you look for like Brando and doing his whole yeah, yeah, the kid of my daughter, coming to my daughter.
My boy.
Yeah. Did that stuff live up to your expectations of what they have been raised to?
Yeah, I mean all the Brando stuff and Robert Duvall and obviously literally forgot that it was Al Pacino. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, that like it came up, the end credits came up, I was like, oh my god, that is Al Pacino because he looks so young and different and
Yeah.
he's so reserved. He's just like he's doing this. He's like, that's my father, that's not me. I'm like, what? Usually you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna go. Like he's just so like a character of himself,
Great
and
ass.
he's and he's just so just like even keeled and like in this movie that it kind of amazed me. So there was all those moments and I was waiting. I was like, well, okay, when is he gonna kiss Fredo? When is it gonna happen? And then it never
Yeah.
happens. Like, oh, I guess that's in part two. Well, okay,
It
fuck,
is.
I
Yep.
guess I gotta watch part two now. But yeah.
They were talking about like and the rewatchables this week. They're doing a
Mhm.
two-parter for Boogie Nights, and they're talking about how there's like nobody young coming up now that are like the Leo DiCaprio guys, or there's no Brad Pitt. There's definitely no Pacinos and De Niro's in their 20s. Like who are the guys in the 20s that are gonna be them? There's like no movie stars like them anymore. And you look at like this came out 72. Pacino was born in
Mhm.
40, so he was 31, 32 when this came out. So it's like it's kind of unfair to say like who are our versions of them when they were younger. Well, they weren't even those versions of themselves back then because
Mhm.
they had to wait until like early to mid 30s before they made The Godfather, and the way the Goodfellas was in the 90s, so they were pushing 50 by the time it made that. So I think it's kind of unfair to be like where's this generation's De Niro and Pacino's, or who is is Timmy Kidd the next Pacino? Probably not, but you never know. He's still very very young. He's like 24, 25. So it's kind of unfair to compare
Hmm. Yeah, they're
performances
all
and
making Marvel movies right now, I think, you know.
yeah, that too. But it's
Yeah.
kind of unfair to be like, where are the Pacinos and De Niro's of their 20s? And like,
Yeah.
well, they weren't De Niro and Pacino in their 20s either. They were, still working for like De Palma in the 60s. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah, great movie though. Definitely want to rewatch it at some point. And you also watched The Natural. Is this for the first time watch as well?
Yeah, this is another first time watch. That was on the plane ride going to Vermont. It's been a movie that I've wanted to watch for a very long time. Have you ever seen it?
A long time ago, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I was like, okay, it's just supposed to be. I love baseball movies. I love baseball movies a lot more than I like baseball, and I love Robert Redford. And it is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen in my life. Like, I did dislike it, but I'm like,
Right.
okay, cool. I'm gonna watch this movie. It's gonna be about baseball, and it's gonna be just Robert Redford. And then it's just like it starts and like in the first like you see one of the funniest things ever, by the way, which is Robert Redford and Glenn Close in their 40s being like trying to play teenagers, and I was like, okay,
Yes.
but like Robert Redford, like the movie starts and he just gets fucking shot, and I'm like, what? Like there's like a serial killer baseball, like she kills baseball players. Like was not expecting that, and then somebody runs through a wall and dies, and just like and then the lightning bolt hitting the tree, and he makes the
Yeah.
bat. Like it's very like it's almost like an American myth. Where it's just like this large, he's like almost like this Thor like figure where it's this larger than life character, and he's got his bat, the Wonder Boy bat that he puts the lightning bolt on, and it was weird. It was so weird. Absolutely one of the strangest movies. And then there's all this stuff about you gotta fix the game, and there's all these like love triangles and stuff going on. And it's like I thought this was gonna be like Moneyball in the '70s, but it is almost a fantasy movie, really. Like that is like I'm really glad I watched it because man, that was not like anything I've seen.
Yeah, speaking of the like Robert Redford playing a guy in his 20s, one of the most egregious versions I've ever seen of that was Michael Shannon was in a biopic on the Iceman, David Richard Kuklinski, and he
Mm,
plays him throughout his entire life. And let's see, Michael Shannon was born in '74, so at that point he would have been almost 40. And like you said, 40-year-old guy trying to play a teenager. He plays him. Michael Shannon plays him as a teenager, and I believe Winona Ryder also plays his wife as a teenager. So that's 2012. They're both
yeah.
pushing 40 at that point. Just yeah, it's absolutely egregious at a certain point, right?
It's like that scene in Dewey Cox where they they have him. He's just like, I'm just 14 years old.
Yeah. Robert Duvall's in this as well. So you saw a couple Duvall's back to back. That was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Duvall double feature.
Exactly. Yeah, Barry Levinson
Yeah,
directed that. It's very, he has a weird sort of career, weird bunch of movies he's done. Did Rain Man, obviously, Good Morning Vietnam, which I still have yet to see. Sleepers, Wag the Dog. Yeah, it's just one of those guys where you're like, Barry Levinson, what did he do? Girl,
yeah, yeah.
Diner.
Rain Man, I think he did too. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
yeah,
Sphere.
very very eclectic career. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did that movie Envy, which is a movie that I really like that everyone else in the world hated.
I remember that movie, 2004. He's got one on
Yeah.
here called The Bay, which is apparently, I think it's a found footage movie. It's on a lot of lists of like, you want to watch good found footage horror movie. Check out The Bay from 2012. That's what I've heard anyway.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see what else we got on here. So watched a couple of movies that I watched as well. One of them was Blowout, inspired by finally watching the De Palma documentary from a few years ago. So I finally checked out a movie that was on the list of some of one of De Palma's best early works, and also one of a great early work from John Travolta. Let me just pull up the stuff. Thought I had everything pulled up. Apparently not. Blow up, not blow up, blow out. Have you seen Blowout from 19?
No, that's the one where Travolta is like he's got the listening device or whatever, and it's kind of like it's Hitchcockian almost, where
Yeah,
it's like kind of like Rear Window, right?
it is like Rear Window. Yeah,
Okay.
he's on a bridge getting Foley sounds for a movie, getting like wind in the trees and getting a river sound, getting outdoor sounds like that. And car comes along, he hears a either a gunshot or a tire being blown out, which is where the phrase comes from. Falls into a river. He saves the woman in the car. The guy in the car, the driver of the car, was either the president or governor, or the governor was running for president or something like that. But anyways, he died, and the woman was also supposed to die, and obviously there wasn't supposed to be anybody there to see the fucking accident. So he gets caught up in this whole conspiracy theory stuff. It's a very, very cool thriller about all of that. Also has John Lithgow, who plays a very creepy. He's basically the strong man, the guy that the higher up conspiracy guys hired to do the killing, and then also to smudge out any other hanging threads, loose threads that might be circling around it. So, been watching a couple of things he was in. I watched All That Jazz right after that because I got the Criterion DVD, so I watched that with him in, and he's a very interesting actor. A lot of stuff he's been in, haven't really caught up with. Just going through his biography right now, and everything's lit up, so I haven't seen a lot of it. The only thing I've seen on the list as far as Terms of Endearment, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I forgot he was in. Forgot he was in Interstellar. Pet Cemetery. Never saw Footloose. Have you seen Footloose?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange movie.
It is a very strange movie, yeah. So yeah, highly recommend Blowout. It's got a, let's see, what do we got in here? 4.0 on Letterboxd, so definitely check that out. Then one more for me, Man on Fire, another classic. It's getting to be a classic. 2004, almost 20-year-old movie at this point. Let me pull up the stuff. Fire. I thought I had my stuff pulled up. Have you seen Man on Fire?
No, is that so? I remember like seeing. I had some DVD, and I've seen the trailer for it a million times because it was always on the trailer beforehand. So yeah, I know Denzel's great in it. That's all I really know about it.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of Tony Scott's. Again, I was catching up with, from that era and Denzel movies and Tony Scott movies. So definitely one of the ones I wanted to check out. Pulling up Mr. Scott's Unstoppable in 2010 was the last one. I passed away not too recent.
Yeah, I think he passed away not too long after Unstoppable.
Yeah,
Which was on TV randomly the other day. I was at my parents' house, and it was just like, I was like, oh yeah, the train movie that Quentin Tarantino loves.
Let me see. So we did Top Gun. The ones I've seen before this, previously, saw Top Gun. I've seen True Romance. I think I've seen parts of Enemy of the State. I put this movie on. I'm like, my God, damn! This camera is moving. There's quick cuts and speeding up the frame rate of everything, and it's just it's insane. The amount of like just the speed of the camera and the just never stops moving the camera, and what's it called? Not Steadicam, with the hand.
Handheld.
Handheld shots, and just very, very frantic movie, very frantic camera movements here, but really good, really incredible performance by Denzel Washington. Obviously, very early, one of the first times the world saw Dakota Fanning was in that. Pretty good.
Yeah, she's like a little kid in this.
Very little kid. Great. One of the best child performances I've seen in a very long time. Christopher Walken was great in this. I love the phrases from this movie. I think I put it on Twitter as I was watching this. Let me pull up some stuff here. Rayburn, Christopher Walken's character, says to another guy talking about Denzel and his character and his profession. He says, "A man can be an artist in anything, food, whatever. Depends on how good at art he is. Creasy's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece." It's just like, that's fucking great. That's a fucking great line.
I didn't even know Walken was in it, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, exactly. They say one of the guys says, in church they say to forgive, and Denzel's character Creasy says, "Forgiveness is between them and God. It's my job to arrange the meeting." Fucking great.
That's a classic Denzel line. That's great.
It's a classic Denzel line. Yeah, exactly. So highly recommend Man on Fire. I think that'll wrap it up. But again, Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. That's what I've been reading this week. Took me a little while to get through it. Physical book. You got to actually, apparently didn't know this. You have to have your eyeballs on the page at all times. You have to read word for word. Can't do anything else, which kind of sucks. Book reading, actual physical book reading. I don't know. Give it a 4 out of 10.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, you can't have another podcast on. You can't have music on. You can't have a game in the background. Like, what is this? This archaic form of entertainment. I do not recommend. But if you have to do that, check out Negative Space. So I have that going on. Just did that recording, so that should be up next week. Really great interview, great guy. And we got a new segment this week because I do want another way to sort of hold myself accountable to watch more things, watch more good things. So we're gonna do a Letterboxd shuffle on the Letterboxd show, on the Letterboxd podcast themselves. They will also do this at the end of their show, sort of assign themselves a movie. So what they will do is, what I'm doing right now is going to my watch list on Letterboxd. I'm going to go down there, and you can actually sort by shuffle. So a random movie will pop up. So I'm on there, and I hit shuffle, and the first one that popped up for me, which I believe is it a short film? It looks like a short film. 12-minute runtime, so that's good. I'll reshuffle, but it is if anything happens to you, a short film from 2020, which I heard was very good. But to do a feature-length movie for next week that we can talk about, or next time, I would do reshuffle it, and the first one that comes up is Capernaum. Capernaum. It looks like an Israeli movie. From, let's see what year, 2018, directed by Aki. About Zayn, a 12-year-old boy scrambling to survive in the streets of Beirut, sues his parents for having brought him into such an unjust world, where being a refugee with no documents means that your rights can easily be denied. Where is that streaming? Stars. Okay, I don't have that, but I guess I'll rent it. Do you want to go to your Letterboxd? You were there?
I just did it, and I got a very weird one that I don't even know when I put this in my watch list.
Right.
It might have been after I was watching like some Harryhausen documentary or something, but I got 1 million years BC, which is the movie. I think the movie poster is much more famous than the actual movie. It's the movie where like Raquel Welch is like a cave woman or whatever. So I guess that's the one I have to watch. It's also not streaming anywhere.
You can
so
reshuffle
I don't
if you
know.
want.
I guess
Yeah, you can reshuffle
because I don't know about like this Ray Harryhausen.
That had Raquel Welch and famously Ringo Starr from the Beatles, I believe.
Oh my gosh, I might have to watch it anyway. But let me do reshuffle anyway, just because. All right, what do we got? Okay, here we go. Panic Room.
Panic Room.
The only David Fincher I haven't seen, so I need to watch that. So that's good. I'll make sure to watch Panic Room.
I'll put that on your list. Check that out. I might actually just watch that along with you because I've seen it, and I definitely know I've seen it. But I might have last time I watched it might have been when it came out in 2001.
Okay, yeah. So I can finally check off my last David Fincher now.
Nice.
Seen Panic Room.
So I believe that'll do it. A little short of a show this week, but not much at the theaters. Not much going out news-wise.
Yeah.
There should be more next week. I believe there's some other. There is. I know for a fact there is Hellraiser, the remake, reimagining. I think is coming out on Hulu. I think a week from now. A bunch of stuff. We're getting to spooky season. Definitely will be coming back next time with a bunch of horror tinge stuff because I know Criterion's going to be putting out their playlist this year. A couple of years ago they did a bunch of 70s stuff, some 70s. Schlocky stuff from back then. Definitely, I saw a bunch of stuff that year. Actually, some of the best horror I saw was that from that playlist that had stuff like Black Christmas, things like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Some really great obscure stuff from the 70s. But this year they're doing a lot of 80s stuff. So definitely a lot of Cronenberg stuff. There's one on there. I think let me pull it up real quick because I know I copied over to my. 80s horror from the Criterion Channel includes stuff like Inferno, which I believe is a giallo film. Yep, Dario Argento's Inferno from 1980. You also have The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne. Never heard of that. We got one called Dead and Buried, which is from Gary Sherman, apparently from 1981. So a bunch of stuff on there that I haven't seen because everything's lit up here. Definitely want to see The Keep. Michael Mann's The Keep from 1983. That's another blind spot of mine. And just talking about lists I made and blind spots, I made a list called Director Blind Spots. So I have a bunch of stuff on there. And The Keep is one of They Live, the John Carpenter movie. John Carpenter's Vampires is also on there. Stuff like Carlito's Way is on there. Thelma and Louise, some more Tony Scott movie that I haven't seen. Speed Racer.
Is that Tony or is that Ridley? I thought it was his brother.
Might have been. Let me see. Thelma and Louise, directed by Ridley Scott. You are correct. Ding, ding, ding. 1 point for you.
Yes, excellent.
Yes. I really want to see Bringing Out the Dead. I have that on there. A Scorsese movie that I've heard great things about. Yeah, I have that on there. But going back to the spooky ooky stuff from Criterion, they have Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, early acting performance by Michael Rooker that I definitely want to catch up on. They have a really great movie that was just referenced on Reddit this week because there was a picture of David Bowie with Susan Sarandon. They're like, oh, this is probably around the same time that he was filming The Hunger by Tony Scott from 1983. Another one I want to catch up on. So yeah, a lot of great stuff on there.
Nice.
So yeah,
hopefully I'll have some more time to watch some stuff this week because since I was gone for half the time, didn't get to watch as many movies as I normally would just on the plane. So
yeah, I got to catch up this week. I gotta have a nice little padding, nice little backlog this coming weekend because next weekend I'll also be at a wedding over in New Hampshire, I believe, somewhere around there. So I have a couple days out there that I won't watch anything, so it's possible I also will come to this podcast next week a little lightheaded, but I'll try to add on some stuff this weekend. All right, so with that, let's do some plugs. Got a bunch of stuff coming up this week, like I said, mentioned a couple times already. But next week, I'll try to put it out on Thursday. Interview with the Cinematheque. He went to the Toronto International Film Festival because he lives up there. So we did a bunch of chats about the best stuff he saw out of there. And the experiences he had, and some stuff to look forward to as well this coming year. Also just did an interview with author B.R. Yeager about his book Negative Space from 2020. I'd highly recommend that, checking that out on the feed. That you can get that in any bookstore or anywhere you want. Get books, maybe on Amazon, maybe some private publishers as well. What you get to plug, my friend?
Yeah, so as always, I do my show Underrated. It's another film podcast where we talk about underrated films. So today there's always an episode out the same day that this show comes out, and today we just finished our mini series called Vintage Collection, where we looked at underrated or kind of forgotten films from before 1970, and my pick for that was Zulu, which was one of my favorite kind of epic films as a teenager, and I hadn't seen or thought about it in years. I realized that I hadn't even checked it off on my Letterboxd until it went back and rewatched it for this. So me and a couple friends go and talk about underrated movies. So this week is Zulu, but we have a whole backlog of other stuff. So definitely check that out. I'm also on Instagram and Medium and all the places. Just look me up, Derek McDuff, or look up Undercast Company on any of the podcasting apps to hear my podcast.
Yeah, I listened to your discussion on Peeping Tom from last week. That was really great.
Yeah, that was fun. That was your suggestion. That was good.
Yeah, I loved all the stuff you talked about there. I also forgot to mention I also have a Letterboxd B for Benedetta over there. Doing the Discord thing. You can go to their Discord, Undercast Company Discord. I'm also pretty active there, and also movies and filmmaking is a great Discord if you want some degeneracy over there. I got about a few thousand people. Yeah,
good community over there for sure. People talking about films and stuff like that.
Yeah, it can be good. Sometimes you get to the wee hours of the night, gets a little unruly, but yeah, generally pretty good discussions over there. So you can check me out there. Check me out on Letterboxd, like I said, Medium blog, damien.sherman.medium.com. I believe is over there. I just wrote about Don't Worry Darling, and I'm gonna do probably some rankings on the best stuff you can find on places like Netflix. But then if you also have a VPN, which we're not sponsored by any VPNs, but I recommend ExpressVPN. They're really great. So what you can actually do is plug in, like if you want to hide your network activity, it's good for that. But also you can say like, oh, I want to check out the Netflix library in UK or in Canada or Mexico. They have completely different movies on the Netflix library in those places. So that's a really great way to sort of get a better value out of those services. Mubi also has Mubi is great. UK Movie is great. Japan Movie is great. So you get a whole different experience if you get a VPN and use that with a bunch of streaming services as well.
Yeah, very nice.
Doing that, yeah. So I'll probably be doing that, doing top 10s spooky stuff that I'm watching, top 10, found footage. I love found footage stuff, so I'll be doing that on the blog as we get closer to Halloween 2022.
Ooh, spooky, spooky, scary skeletons.
Yep. all right, man. So for Can I Say Something and Derek, I've been Damien, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.